All right, I think we're live. Hi everyone, I am Prabez and I'm currently working as senior SRE at Capsule. Um, Today we'll be talking about how we were able to transform our infrastructure security using breaking the cycle of deploy, scan, scramble, and repeat, and how we were able to go from spending more than 40% of our time to less than 5% through prevention and systematic evolution. Um, Quick intro about myself. I am a dog dad and a Docker captain. And not should be different bullet points, but yeah, I'm a dog dad and a Docker captain. Currently working as a senior SRE at Capsule, where I focus on security and reliability primarily. In the free time, I do write blogs and articles. When I'm free, I'll share the link in the end of the slides. In Medium, I write it on Medium and Substack. My core specializations are security and resilience engineering, but I also have a deep passion for building a system that scales. And yes, that's my dog Momo. He's a Cavapoo, noisy Cavapoo, but yeah, I love him. Um, so before we talk about what we are going to learn today, I want to kind of like tie up to what Ruby said in the previous talk, which kind of fits to what I'm about to talk. So she did mention about 90% of the issue that we face, or security issues that we face, is due to misconfiguration. 75 is due to lack of IaC compliance scan, and 88% is due to people just trying to do the right thing, right? And this actually is true, right? This is actually true. And like today we'll be talking about how you can address these things using like tagged and vetted module and go from reactive security to proactive prevention. Um, as you mentioned, we would need to treat security as first class citizen, which we'll learn how to do it in using Terraform tag module. Throughout this slide, I've added some QR codes which you can scan to go through the slides if you want on your at your own pace, or go back and forth. It's up to you, or follow along. So let me paint a picture, right? It's Friday, 4 p.m. You're about to leave for the day. You are like hard day at work, and you are about to wrap up the week, and then you get an email from legal saying SOC 2 audit is next week, and you need to prove that all the database has encryption at rest or in transit. I'm pretty sure you might have faced something similar, not the same scenario, but could be different. But at some point in our life, I think we all have faced similar issues and the similar ask, right? Not issues. And if you're nodding your heads, trust me, you're not the only one. It did happen more a lot than you can imagine. This is what we call traditional IC security death spiral. Death spiral because each iteration makes it even worse. Go through like a little bit of it, right? uh, Developer wants to move fast. They need to deliver because it's a business arc. But in the pursuit of moving fast and flexibility, they tend up using raw resource, which introduces vulnerability. And when you are scanning things post deployment, you end up finding issues in production. Now, what happens is when you find issues in production, you scramble to fix it, and which often requires you to make risky changes in production without testing it, validating it, and auditing it. And the cycle repeats. This like continuous visual like spiral of cycle creates like developer frustration. It leads to burnout and adds up to the security debt. um, I mean, just to add some perspective, at our peak, we were spending more than 40% of our time trying to make sure like any change, a small change in our module doesn't bring out the entire company infrastructure down, which is not sustainable, right? This is like we need to get away from it and find a better solution. And like this scrambling is not scrambling is not just bad luck. It's due to it is rooted into a deeper problem that the company has, which is costing like it's a symptom for a deeper problem that the company has, which is costing company more money, resource, and sanity, or developer sanity. So how we fix this, right? is there a way to fix this? This is where our breakthrough insight came in when we actually asked ourselves, what if security violations became almost impossible instead of inevitable? Very good. Like what if, right? Like obviously anything can be solved with what ifs, but yeah, for this case, what if we can do it in such a way that developer can move fast, but also they don't need to worry about these things. This is where our dual approach came in. First is, why not bake in security into the module directly, so that when developer use it or consume it for the first time, uh, it's already secure. Like it's secure by default. This is where the prevention comes in. And as we all know, security is not perfect. We can't get everything right all the time. This is where systematic evolution comes in, systematic upgrade or evolution, where we use tagged module, which gives us more flexibility to iterate around the module and make it better or more secure than what it was previously. As a result of this, we like our experience, we were able to reach from more than 40% of our time to less than 5% to fixing the security issues. Uh, so let's talk a little bit about resources, right? I mean, using resources is fine. It's not a big problem, but when you are a company and building infrastructure at scale, using like when you use raw resource, it requires developers to reinvent the security all by themselves. Like each team, if each team is implementing resource by themselves, they are essentially reinventing security on their own. And like there is a configuration drift happening throughout the organization which you are not aware of, and it's very hard to account. And like accountability is not there. This often causes, when you like, when if you are using like S3, it'll be like resource to build S3, then you solve the problem, fix the business requirement, but then security comes in as an afterthought. I was like, oh, I need to make sure the bucket doesn't have an open policy, or I need to make sure it's not public, right? So security even like causes, like using resource security causes us to think like treat it as an afterthought, and this essentially causes inconsistent compliant posture in the organization. Like in contrast to this, what if we use curated module mindset, where you we create a module where security is treated as an infrastructure, it is baked into the module itself. When you use this, you will get a consistent configuration across your organization, and like peace of mind as well, right? Suppose if you have a well thought, well curated module which is properly secure, hardened, then you can be like pretty like confident that this won't break anything, or this won't open up our production to public internet. So yeah, curated module mindset helps us to build in the like configure best practices by default, and automatically we get compliant by default. So like the whole motto behind this, or shifting from raw resource to curated mindset, like module mindset, is we want to make sure security is impossible to get wrong when it's like embedded in the foundation itself, right? So let's talk about a quick example here. This is an example of raw S3 bucket, where like raw resource which creates a S3 bucket. Looks simple, right? It looks very innocent. It's a bucket, it has tags and all. But what's missing here? Key thing is it's missing encryption. It's missing logging. Missing ACL. It's missing audit logs, or object level logging. Now, as a company, if you are like looking for like compliance or SOC 2 compliance, then the auditor would look for it. And it's actually required. It's not like fulfilling SOC requirement. You actually need this kind of thing to make a secure bucket, right? These are the things missing, and then developer need to go back or come back and add this into their resource. But what if we use module instead? This is the same thing as previous, but instead of raw resource, now we are referencing a module which is tagged with a version, and all the things that we talked about missing previously is already baked into the module. It has encryption, logging, ACL, bucket policy, everything is configured in the, and just 3 lines of code, developer now can be confident that the bucket that they create is secure, SOC 2 compliant, or any compliance, like compliant to any what do you call, regulatory bodies, and they can be like pretty confident that this bucket is safe and secure. That's the whole concept, from moving away from raw resource to using vetted module. um, so as I discussed, the we like model using module is good for building security into the foundation, right? Let's talk about how we develop a module, like do the module development. Like it goes through a lot of steps, but there are like 4 key phases that we use. Whenever a module is created, it is like vetted by multiple teams. It is not vetted by infosec. It's not just vetted by like engineering, not just by SRE. It's vetted by multiple teams. We run the module through compliance audit through tools, or the tools like Sneak, TFSec, Chekhov, and other, to make sure it's compliant with other like regulatory requirements. And then we tagged and release the module using semantic versioning. If you are aware of semantic versioning, it's just basically versioning your module based on major, minor, and patch release. And once the module is released, we test and audit, like validate it, so that it works, it is fulfilling its intended purpose, and then we expose it to engineering or other teams to consume it. Now, what goes into each and every module? Like we talked about the process of building a module, but what each module has, or what each module should have. One is it should have embedded security control, so that at least bare minimum encryption, logging, monitoring, tags, everything is baked in, right? It has sensible defaults to override, because it should not, like modules should not be rigid, right? It should be easily extensible, and but like it should be easier to use but hard to misuse. Like I don't know, it's a good phrase, but uh, yeah, it should have like sensible override, like we should build a comprehensive documentation on how developer can then consume the module with the defaults. We should have automated testing and validation. You can do it through pipelines, like to run Terraform validate, or you could do it like Terraform is notorious on failing when in apply, even if it passes in validation or TF plan. So you can actually do a canary, build the canary infrastructure, and then tear it down as part of the pipeline. Now, doing all of this gives developer like one mindset, right? From like, does this look secure, to like, oh, I'm pretty sure, confident this is secure. Like, so it's all about building confidence and security. So like let's talk about like how a day in our Terraform like module looks like. So suppose the module is already there, and our SaaS or developer identified security issues. How we go about fixing it? When the issues is first identified, we update the module and patch it immediately, and then tag and release it. Now, based on the criticality of the issue, we test and validate, and depend on. I will talk about how we roll things in next coming slide. But once it's tested and validated, developer consume the module, and the cycle continues. This is where the two approach I mentioned before, whereas like we prevented the module by creating a secure module from the beginning, but we also have a systematic evolution process where we iterate through it to make it even better. So just like quick information about how we manage our modules. We use tagged monorepo with independent release of each module. So when you're using, like if you're using Terraform module in like, you don't want to maintain 100 of Git repos for 100 of your Terraform module. Like it's so hard to track and maintain. So what we do is in each module, we create a version.yaml file, which contains a version and changelog file. That changelog file consists of all the iteration that we did, and the information what was like changed in each version. And then we use all of these to create a Git tag for independent module. So essentially, if you see on the right, there is a folder structure, but when we release a module for ECR, eventually that tag would only have those 4 files: main.tf, changelog.tf, version.yaml, and when you consume it, your application or source code would only have those 4 files. Um, so let's talk about how version configuration is done. It's pretty elegantly simple. It's only like version.yaml has version defined. That's it. So if this version, how it works is, developer makes changes to a module. We bump the version based on the change, type of change. If it's a backward compatible change, we may change the patch version. If it's a little bit significant change, we update the minor version. If it's like breaking change, we update the major version. So once we bump the version, we execute. We have a script. You can do it through GitHub Action or your pipeline of your choice. Depends on the company. We just chose to do this shell script. It's fine. We execute the script, which tags and release the module. So what that script does is it identifies the module or version that was changed, and then compares it with the one that was released previously. And then if it finds a drift, it tags and releases the new module. It's simple. So as I mentioned, this is how release works. All script scans for all version.yaml file for change. It compares current and previous version. When change or drift is detected, we remove all the other older module which hasn't been changed in the whole entire tree structure of the repo, and keep only the module which has been changed. We create a tag like this tag. So suppose if I change RDS provision module, then it creates a tag like region, RDS provision, and the version defined in the version file, and then we release, which is consumed by the developers. It's pretty simple. So as I mentioned, we make changes to the module, right? But it depends on how we want to roll it out. You don't want to force things. But so we categorize the change into risk categories. If it's a very risky vulnerability that popped up and we have to patch everything right now, then we tag, release, and immediately roll out. Or sometimes you have to just circumvent the rule and just modify the existing module so that it will be reflected across the organization immediately. But for critical risk, we immediately roll it out. If it's a standard upgrade that we did to improve our compliance or security posture, we do a phased rollout, which is in tranches. So we categorize all of our resources into batches and then roll it out throughout the year. So that way, developers are not spending 100% of their time rolling this infrastructure change only, right? They have a lot of other things to do. They infrastructure should be their least of the concern. And if it's an advancement, you added some fancy tag which makes it easier for our security scan to pick in things up, it's not important, but it's a good enhancement, right? So for those kind of changes, we do a gradual adoption. You don't have to implement it right now, but you can adopt it throughout the line. So we do 3 types of risk categorization, and based on that we roll it out. Sorry. So what we discussed about tag Terraform module and how we manage this, right? Now let's talk about how it has impacted our organization. It has significantly improved our risk posture. Previously we were firefighting, right? This issues comes up, we roll it out, scan, and now we have moved from reactive to proactive security, where we baked in security into the module itself, and we're pretty sure if you make a bucket private and it is consumed by everybody, you don't need to be worried about whether the bucket is private or public later in the life cycle, right? It is already baked in, unless somebody goes to AWS and changes the bucket to public. That's a different problem. That you should have SCIM or any kind of security platform which detects these kind of issues. It helped us create a consistent compliance across all of our team. So every team uses the module that gives us confidence that the structure or the configuration of module across all the projects in our company is same. I mean, there might be some differences on the configuration values. Some might be using RDS with like different instance class, but like at its core, both all of them are using their own KMS key and not a shared KMS key. That I can be for sure like certain about. And it reduces our risk audit preparation time. When you like, if you have gone through like compliance, like what do you call renewal, you would need to provide all of these evidences to the regulatory bodies. And knowing that all of the company resources are using module, and all of them use tagged and vetted module, gives us more confidence that we can just like provide it as a proof, and reduces our audit preparation time, because what was last year is same as this year. It, apart from technical change, it has built a big cultural transformation as well, where security is now seen as an enabler, not a blocker. And it's more developer focused. It's a shared repository. Everybody can come and like contribute to the repo. No one like, our team shepherds this, but it's, we are only the shepherds. We're not the owner. We have a shared responsibility model where everybody is owner of the resource. And basically this helps us deliver feature faster and better maintain better security. Like if I had to summarize all of these in one sentence, like security implementation or change using tag module has reduces our experience from weeks of trying to figure out whether what things can break to like minutes of prevention. So it has been a like made a significant impact. So now, after all of these, my pitch, if you are ready to implement your 30-day plan of how we do it, here is a short guide how you can plan for your 30-day implementation at your company. At first, what we want to do is audit and prioritize top 3 resources. Do not try to address like create modules for everything from the get-go, because you'll fail, right? It's a failing challenge. So what I want you to do is audit top 3 resources that are used in the company, maybe whether it can be IAM, or whether it can be RDS, whether it can be Lambda, right? And then build and test first set of vetted modules. Once those modules are created, scanned, audited, and tested, you pilot it with one engineering team. We want to reduce the traction as well, right? It's not all about implementing security. We want to make sure company maintains the velocity as well. So pilot and iterate with one team. Once it's ready, roll it out to wider teams or wider engineering or throughout the company. So that's your 30-day implementation plan. One thing that I want to highlight is there are critical things that needs to be done for this implementation to succeed. One is, when the module is being created, it needs to be like everybody needs to vouch in for the module, chip in, provide their insight, even from executive to enterprise manager to developers from other teams. Everybody needs to be involved, or at least consulted with. That way, what we can do is we can frame it as risk reduction and not a developer restriction, because we are consulting and bringing him way early in the development. We want to make the module easier to use, so make sure like it's not too rigid, and don't just force migration. We are talking about cultural shift or change in mindset. So we don't want to make like force it on developers to just like use it. Oh, I created this vetted module, you have to use it. That will probably not work well. So make sure it's like making it attractive and easier to implement would bring in more consumers rather than forcing the migration. Now let's talk about common pitfalls that you want to avoid, or also lesson learned. These are the pitfall that I've noticed when when working with this, and don't try to over engineer the module too much, because perfection, if you are aiming for perfection, the mod will never be ready. You'll always like spend almost all of your time trying to fix the module, but we want to move fast as well, right? So don't try to handle every edge cases. Make sure it's like good for on the first pass, right? And you don't have to have like a lot of complex configuration. Keep it simple. Don't just over engineer. Like what we want to do is we want to start simple, iterate based on real business need, not just like some theoretical random esoteric security problem. um, so the other thing is don't make the module too rigid, because different developers or different team have different requirements. So we need to make sure there are like proper escape hatches. We don't want to force one size fits all approach, and have option for developers to override if it's necessary. Uh, because some business case might need S3 bucket to be public. Suppose if you are like exposing some public assets to for your website to S3, then it needs to be public, right? Unless you are using CDN, that's a different problem. Basically, we want to make sure like initially build 80% of the solution with flexibility and developer focus or developer experience in mind. The other thing is shifting this strategy is a cultural change. It's not a like technical thing, as just it's not just technical thing. So we don't want to force adoption too quickly. We want people to embrace it. We want people to look forward for it. Like, so we want to like what we should not be like we should you should involve developers when we are building the module, because they are the primary consumers for your Terraform module. The other thing is not communicating properly. You need to communicate when some change is being done, having a good like feedback cycle in place, so that people can express their concern or also suggest some more ideas. So as we all know, cultural change takes time. Like it's not immediate change. It might some company it might take 6 months. For some company it might take years, right? So don't just like force it on the developers. Uh, Other than that, I'm almost at the end of the slide. So I want to leave you with two key things that you want to remember. Like obviously we talked about a lot of things. Make sure like let's talk about like some strategic insights. We want to make sure cultivate the ideas of prevention is better than remediation. Obviously we want to remediate with a feedback loop, but initially we want to make sure if something can be prevented, let's try to prevent it. Security, when security is baked in, or shift left strategy, right? When you are shifting security left in the pipeline, it is more effective rather than thinking it as an afterthought and scanning it after like some deployment. Systematic evaluation should be in place so that we can iterate things over rather than manual updates. And we need to make sure everything, all of the things that we talk about today is focused with developer experience in mind and not just technical requirement. So if you are planning to implement it on next Monday morning, your first reaction should be audit most three resource, map your current security pain points that the company is facing, identify your first module candidates, and then start with one team and one use case, and then iterate from there or slowly build on top of it. So there's a saying, right? You don't need perfect security on day one. Sorry, that should be one, ONE1, but I made a typo. Right. But we just want to make sure the needle for security is moving consistently in the right direction. You don't have to make it perfect from the get-go. That's the key insight that I want you to remember. Other than that, I'm open to questions. Still have 10 more minutes, so let me know if you have any questions.
Hey, Pravesh, that was an awesome session. There's definitely some questions. People have been putting them into the Q&A, and there's some upvotes there. So we can go through these, and I can bring them on screen, and we can answer them based on the most upvotes first. If people want to go review what's in there, go add some new ones or upvote. We've got just over 10 minutes here. All right, so let's see. Let's start with. So with this one, so as a platform engineer, I want to feed the DevOps team IaC templates that are ready to use and compliant with our policies. How can I encourage force them to use these templates instead of every team reinventing the wheel?
Again, this is very nice question. You don't want to force these things. Like you want to make it attractive enough so that people want to use it. So imagine somebody wants to implement a Lambda function, right? Um, if you want to create a IaC, like suppose if you create a IaC template where people will just copy paste the module, and that gives them all the things that they want for the project, then that's a win-win for everybody, right? For company, you get security. For developer, it's fast, like rather than thinking about how to create Lambda resource, how to create all the additional resource associated with it. Like Lambda needs IAM permission, Lambda might need access, like KMS keys, right? All of those things. So the key thing here is encouragement rather than forcing. We want people to like encourage and show them, like there's a saying, right? When you make it easy or very appealing to consume, people will come in. So it's more encouragement and make it appealing, so that and maybe when, if it's the first time, you might need to hold some hands and show them how to use it. Have, not just from your team, get advocates from other team who are like fascinated with this and want adoption, and they will be your advocate for the company. So
yeah, you could build some power users as advocates and get them to
yes,
show the benefit to their peers. Yeah.
also,
Great.
even better if they are cross team, not just from your team.
Yeah, great point. All right, question here from Matt. How do you internally promote new modules with best practices, ensure they are being utilized by teams? It's very kind of similar to the last one. How do you have an internal sourcing structure to enable teams to contribute to the creation of them?
So at Capsule, we have like shared responsibility or shared ownership of repositories, and we actually encourage developer to make changes on their own. So initially, it's not one team that manages and maintains all of these. It's more like, suppose example would be, if Garrett is from engineering team and he found out an issue that the KMS key is using, sorry, IAM permission is using wildcards, right? Now, if he identified the issue, I will work with him to remediate it and show him how he can contribute to the project and release it from start to finish. And once he's done, now he is aware of the policies and practices we have, because we work together, pair programming, and then eventually from next time onward, he knows where to go and what to update and how to release the module. So internally promoting is other, like one thing that I want to add is sometimes people slip in the resource. For that, you would need to implement a shared kind of like scan, which flags use of raw resource rather than modules. You might want to implement um, like what do you call, example would be GitHub action, right? If somebody is using a resource in their pipeline, so in their infrastructure where all of them are module, then it should flag and say, oh, this person like it might not be intentional, but mistakenly might have been added without, because they are just new to the company, they don't know the module were there. So you might need some kind of mechanism which flags the use of raw resource. But promoting, it's more like you need to be like an advocate, like you need to advocate with them.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, here's a question from Jason, which is picking up some upvotes. Can you speak about the different definitions of a module, being one, a specific resource with predefined security controls, or two, all associated resources needed to deploy a resource, including a private endpoint, DNS links, etc.? In other words, should a module deploy one resource or multiple?
That's a really good question. So it depends. Again, like it's not the answer you might want to hear, but it depends on the use case that company want. So example would be, suppose if you are just building a S3 bucket, it would be a hybrid of both, because if you want to deploy a RDS, you want to make sure it has its own KMS key, right? It has suppose if you want to deploy Lambda, you will not just create a module for Lambda. You will create the module for Lambda, which has its dependencies on itself as well. Like, so Lambda and IAM permission and all the extra things, right? So one module, like it's more like one module might have multiple resource defined in it, so that it like depends like on functionality. If you want to do it on functionality, it could be all resource associated needed to deploy a resource, right? Or fulfill a function. Like suppose example would be, I want a CDN for my S3 bucket, right? It requires you to create CDN, it requires you to create S3 bucket, all the resource and everything for that whole functionality. You could like approach it that way, or you could just create individual resource for each module. But I found creating module based on problems is easier and secure rather than creating individual resource with predefined security control. But both of them would have security hardening done in place. So in short, it depends on the company requirement and how like the use case as well. You're on mute, Garrett.
Thank you. All right, next question here from Philip. What toolkit do you use for testing modules?
So we actually have a pipeline which builds the infrastructure. As I mentioned, Terraform is notorious in failing in apply, even if you build a module. So what we do is we actually build up the module and then tear it down as part of the pipeline when it's being released. So it does Terraform plan, apply, create, and we do have canary deployments that creates the whole infrastructure consuming our own module, and we validate the checks against them. You can do like checks using pads or self script or any kind of other tooling.
Okay, cool. All right, we've got 3 minutes here, so maybe a couple more questions. One here from Henry. Can you also restrict the developers from using a resource in their IaC code and enforce the use of a vetted module in your organization?
Yes, so we use kind of a shared pipeline at our company where all of the Terraform plan runs through our shared pipeline, and SRE team maintains that pipeline. So what we can do is just do a grep of resource when the pipeline gets triggered from any team, and it flags the use of resource. So you can use the concept of shared pipeline, or you could do it externally, which scans through your entire GitHub repo and flags it. But I found using shared pipeline effect like works very effectively.
Okay, great. Question here from Rashav, who is our next presenter. Oftentimes the dev team consuming the module wants to make a tweak to fit their needs. However, this can break expected functionality from existing consumers of the module. How do you try to bridge this gap?
That's a very good question. We recently faced the same issue because, as I mentioned, each team might want things differently. So we create a vanilla module which is vetted, tested, audited with all the hardening, but each team can tune into like so each team can tune the same module that we have into their like construct of different construct. Like so suppose if you are a team, like basically our module or like the vetted module is used by other team and they tweak it as their liking, but at its core it's the main module that like vetted module that we release is used by each team. They wouldn't, so example would be they would create their own module from the vetted one if they want to make some tweak their changes to their need.
Got it. All right, we've got 1 minute here. Let's get this question from Sean. When you create a new release, how do you ensure the new tag is used by the developers?
We maintain a registry of all the tags. It's like simple as that. We just maintain a README file with all the registry, which is updated when pipeline is like module is released, and whenever somebody needs to consume it, they just refer to the registry. It's a README file in the repo, and like markdown file in the repo. It's very simple.
Okay. All right, great. Well, this is going to end in 30 seconds. Want to give time for people to go to the next session. And anything else? Prabesh, thank you very much. This is a great session. There's some more questions in here which we can share and we can follow up afterwards. go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anybody wants to connect and chat more about it, here are my socials, and Specialist has good resource on Terraform module and how they work. If you want to go and have a look, and there are some references. But yeah, let connect with me and we can chat more about it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you in the next session.
All right, bye.